In real life, there are a lot of guys who are from Ohio and just work in outer space, and we know about them here on Future Please. My name is Joseph.
One, bad. Two, good. Three, bad. Four, not good. I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, this very special episode going out to our patrons out there for enabling it. Thank you. And our most NPR, this is brought to you by viewers like you moment. We are completing our look back at a key part of the Trek mythos, what is often called the Genesis Trilogy. Peter, what would we watch this week?
We got into Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Release date November 26th, 1986. Number 4 of 13 in the Star Trek films. Screenplay by Stephen Mearson, Peter Krikis, Harve Bennett, and Nicholas Meyer. Story by Leonard Nimoy, Harve Bennett. Directed by Leonard Nimoy. Produced by Harve Bennett. What an incestuous group there, huh?
Well, the money was coming in at this point. This is after two pretty successful movies. They fired this one up, and I want to talk meta for a moment about this.
I want to start with what I saw when I queued this guy up to watch it. And it was adventure comedy. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's decades since I watched this thing, and I don't know if I've ever actually sat down and watched the entire thing beginning to end. I went and I pulled up all the other Star Trek movies that I have in my collection. Comedy does not get brought up a single other time. And
every so often, Trek season does a comedy episode, and so there's the one Trek comedy movie. It's this one.
I wonder why there's only one.
Bro, you are a hater because very many people disagree with you on this one. The Voyage Home was at the time the most financially successful Star Trek film by a lot. And in fact, sir, that this success of this movie, which made over $100 million in 1986, which was fucking dealing, that was dealing back then. This is why TNG got made. This was the final straw where they're like, this thing has some legs and we got to do TV with this. We got to continue to explore this. There's too much money to be made. So you want to hate on this bad boy? This is why we're here right now. This
is what happens
film
when you appeal to morons. And this lowest common denominator, broadest public appeal possible. You had the most successful Star Trek movie because it has the least amount of sci-fi possible. It has the least amount of Star Trek possible. And this thing was fucking dog shit. I couldn't get through this fast enough. I wish there was a fast forward, like 2x play option on the way I watch this thing.
I, of course, deeply disagree. I love this movie. I'm not saying you're not wrong and that it has the least amount of Star Trek in it out of these films, but that is the thing about a gateway drug, Peter. And this was my gateway drug into Star Trek, and I will always love it for that. This is the very first piece of Star Trek media I ever saw. I started watching the original series after this because I was interested in. My dad saw I was interested in it, so we started doing that. And indeed, and it's brought up in the Memory Alpha here, the VHS version of this that I had a teaser for TNG, and like the sets were built and they started telling you about the characters, and it was just Gene Roddenberry talking about it. And it's a fascinating artifact that I desperately wish I still had. And I wonder if like that promo stuff is on the internet somewhere. I imagine it is because it was a very popular movie. So I'm sure someone has a copy that they ripped on there.
What did they flag him as on this? Executive consultant?
Yeah, they stuffed them all the way back in the closet.
This movie, I think, was designed with a question in mind, and it was, how many times can you be punched in the head yet still sit down and be able to write a movie script?
I you're hating too hard here, man.
No,
I think a lot
no,
of this is
just
actually pretty
just
Star
right.
Trek. I like okay. Let's go through it. I think that the first act of this movie is very Trek and sets the stage very well. It is interesting because we are still kind of in the furthest frontier of what you might call the rules of the game. So this is before there's a lot of Trek lore. This is before it got kind of deep on establishing things about like technobabble and things you can do in this universe and not. Like at one point, like near the end, of course, like Sulu goes to warp within Earth's atmosphere, which you can't
I was
do.
gonna talk because
Yeah,
we
like so
just
there,
had the
but
conversation about like why are they moving so slowly, to get to this moon of Bajor. Uh, a lot of that stuff I can hand wave away,
yeah,
and I
sure.
agree absolutely. They frame a lot of stuff in this movie well. The probe that comes rolling in, real 70s looking, real like I get it. It's like a 70s out there Asimov-y sci-fi
Yeah,
textured cylinder with the little ball. Like it's
it's
alien.
alien. Yeah, it's alien
It's
and like
cool.
and it looks like wow guys I think a higher species is visiting us, right? It's so alien it looks like it's from Dune and you're like
Yeah.
fuck like whatever's going on here we are not prepared.
Now I would sit there and I would bust Starfleet's balls and say, all right, why is there one fucking ship between this thing coming from wherever with like infinite trajectory, like we know which way this is coming, and then Earth proper? Except, you and I sat there and watched the Zindi crisis, and we know that Earth does not, in fact, keep any starships ready to defend itself.
In this case no, there's like a ton of them, they just can't do anything.
They're all
They're
just
just
parked. I like this thing shows up. It's 6 miles away, and they're like, evacuate space dock. You knew this thing has been coming for like 6 hours. What? Why is the Excelsior still parked in there? What is going on? Who's calling the shots over there?
so the frame story here I think really works. I think it holds up as a piece of Star Trek plot that isn't dumbed down. It's Kirk and the boys, they've got the bounty, they're on Vulcan, they kind of have to know they just got to go back to Earth and face the music.
Well, let's talk about that real fast. The diplomatic scene,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I'm going to hand wave the fact that this guy's portrayal of a Klingon is like far too Shakespearean aristocrat. Like the meat and potatoes there is that the Klingons are fucking pissed because Kang, who was pretty well to do, is dead. Their ship is gone. And really, they're pretty butthurt that the Federation has this doomsday missile.
and they obviously are trying to lean very very hard on the whole Cold War conflict element here, that the Klingons are literally the Soviets, and there's this tension where there's going to try and be peace, maybe there isn't going to be, this might disrupt it. Kirk's kind of in trouble, but of course what's the kind of the fly in the ointment. Oh, that is that apparently everyone knows that Spock was resurrected from the dead, and we know that because Sarek rolls in like a G, just is like, I'm just in charge of this meeting now.
Yeah.
I'm not you, Mr. Klingon. You can just sit down. I'm not having any of this because let's face it, my son was resurrected by Kirk and his gang, so that's gonna matter.
I like is like I've arrived here to defend the accused. So did he fly there from Vulcan specifically for this? And like,
Yes.
how bad is his driver that he just made a 6-day journey or whatever it is, and he's getting there like 4 minutes before this thing wraps?
Either that or Vulcans come with dramatic timing skills that we have not yet started to unlock.
He did a cost benefit. He like get a time usage analysis of these things. He's like, yeah, the first like 6 hours, a big waste of time. I need to come in 4 minutes before this wraps. I like when they're showing the footage of the poor Klingons being lured onto the Enterprise before it self-destructs, and then it blows up, and they're just showing footage from Star Trek 3 out there in the middle of nowhere where
Where's this Klingon black box that apparently captured all of this?
Where's this external footage coming from? Like, how did they get external camera footage of the Enterprise blowing up and crashing?
I mean, I guess it technically could have come from the bounty somehow because it could have captured this information. Like someone could have had a GoPro on. I don't know. It was obviously outside the ship. Like it was in position to do all of this. So I guess you could say like they have that because Kirk has sent a report in about what he's done, and so they have the whole picture, right? That this guy showed up, destroyed the Grissom. Like they tell you the plot of Star Trek 3 real quick in case you didn't see it. And it's done in a way that is contained within this initial scene that still works in its own right.
And that recap, I think, is critical. I don't think you're going to go into Star Trek 3 without seeing Khan.
Right.
And you're sure as fuck not going into Khan without seeing Star Trek, the motion picture. But I think you can really, November 26th, so they're going after that Thanksgiving, going into the holiday season crowd there. You absolutely can get grandma and your aunt and uncle who don't care about this shit and everybody else very easily, I think, to go see a movie that is supposed to be about the funny space guys from Star Trek going into San Francisco in the 80s and getting arrested for being Russians.
So, good frame. He's got to come back. He's got to face the music. Spock is dealing with all of his, I just got resurrected and I'm still kind of getting used to being in my body again and being mortal. It's all freaking everybody out, but at the same time, it doesn't. And
how long are we to believe that they've been on Vulcan at this point?
They said 3 months. That's what they said in Kirk's captain's log.
Again, there's a story they want to tell. There's a story they're going to tell. And we're just going to hand wave a lot of common sense and whatever else. Like, Kirk's been charged on 6 counts of light treason or what have you. Vulcan is a week away, 6 hours away. Like, what did they say the distance between the two is?
And I guess it all depends on speed, right? Depends on how quickly you want to go. But regardless, your point is they could have gone and got them at any time. In fact, McCoy says, like, they could have come and got us any time with any ship they wanted. Instead, they're making us come home with this thing. And I think that's part of what they have in the novelization, but not in the movie. That's a big thing, by the way, in the memory alpha for this, and something I knew about because I've read the novelization and I have a first-hand account of this. The novelization is based off of an earlier draft of this script that had Eddie Murphy as the whale doctor. Oh. Yes, he actually accepted doing. He's a fan of Star Trek. He wanted to do the movie. There was going to be no female love interest, which is why that is treated the way it's treated. And he bailed out to do a different movie, which he later regretted. And so they rewrote that part. But when they rewrote that part, they went back and punched. They decided to lean into the comedy and eliminate some of the crunchiness from the script and just like, let's play this more as a comedy because we think that this can really work as a way to get people who don't normally watch Star Trek to watch Star Trek.
I really like the idea of Gene. I really like the idea of us having that comedian in there. So let's just set that up in a little hidey hole. And I don't know, maybe we'll see what Silverman's doing in the late 90s for their flashback episode.
What a downgrade from Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
But in the novelization, they actually like clarify there's a lot of tension over the fact that Starfleet actually captured a Klingon bird of prey with a cloaking device.
And that's what I'm going to say. Like,
yeah,
granted, all the TNG treaties and stuff that specifically forbid shit like the Pegasus or any sort of cloak, like the thing's just fucking sitting. Let me get this straight. You took out my crew. You got our warbird. You flew it back to the planet with the smartest fucking people in the Federation, and it's been there for how many months?
Yes. So that's why everyone is like kind of like being real cool about everything right now. Is there's a lot of Cold War style tension going on with the fact that like Federation's got like maybe it's got a super weapon and now it has our cloaking device, and it's like this has all gotten very not cool very quickly. and we're just all, no one's gonna move fast. Everyone's just gonna chill right where they are.
You know,
That
get
was
out all the Vulcans with their pointy, ugly ass Santa Claus Christmas elf hats, and they're just going to crawl all over this thing.
yeah, they're like Bronze Age Judaism outfits. Like it's straight up.
uh, you know, it's going to be a 6-hour drive home. So, of course, let's get this piece of alien technology, this Klingon bird of prey, right?
Yes.
Make sure it's interfaced with Federation computers with full info on Earth, because, you know, you never know, right?
Of course. Hey, listen, you don't never fly a spaceship out there that's not fully capable. That's actually Kirk's advice in Generations, is it not? Like, why'd you leave Stardock without a tractor beam? Right? Like, this is
What do you mean you
actually
don't?
some good continuity.
What do you mean you didn't upload the entire Federation database into this Klingon vessel that I presume we're going to have to return, right? We can't just put it in a museum for the next 200 years, can we?
And that's so there's a line of dialogue in here where Kirk talks about the fact that they've got this ship with a cloaking device and it cost them a lot, and that's when McCoy brings up, why didn't the ship come with us? In the novelization, it's all fleshed out, and instead of it being kind of like a quick thing with a comedy quip in it, it's, well, a lot of like war crime stuff just happened, and we have we have the cloaking device, and they don't like that, and I think everyone just wanted us to just be quiet and stay here, and now we've been told to come home now, so that's what we're gonna do.
Hmm.
Didn't need to start a war on top of everything else, right? We're already in enough shit.
I guess if you say these guys are fugitives,
Yeah.
we don't have your ship with a cloaking device. These fugitives do. Like the that's the leg you can lean on there, right?
Right. Like there's all kinds of ways you can politics your position here. And so them chilling for 3 months while the tension dies down a little bit, and it's like, all right, guys, let's get in and go home.
There's a lot of forced scenes through here that come off as very silly. Again, they've been there for 3 months. There's infinite opportunity for Savick to talk to Kirk about the last moments of his son, or McCoy to talk to Spock about all this stuff. And instead, you get these goofy little vignettes that happen at the various duty stations as they're getting ready to take off of this thing. And it's like, why weren't these scenes on the surface? Why wasn't there not a recap or a montage, but just something showing that these deeper conversations happened in a context other than, hey, can you leave me alone? I'm trying to like fly right now. And there's, Kirk and McCoy specifically, like, subspace is full of chatter of people screaming about Earth being attacked. And I got McCoy over here talking to me about, hey, you never did say anything about dying and being resurrected, Spock Christ. Can we talk about that?
You only got 2 hours, right? Like, gonna have to compress some of these things. I think it's fine. I think they do just enough of it, right? Like, I don't need a whole movie about McCoy's being all fucked up over the fact that he, carried Spock's soul for a while and then put it back in his body, and he's basically not had a conversation with anyone about it. I just want him to say, like, hey, so that was weird. We ever gonna have a conversation? And Spock really just like, I'm not up for that right now. And he's like, fuck, all right. Like, that's just enough, right? Like their friendship has always been awkward. It's really, they're both friends with Jim, and that's why they're friends with each other. And they just had the incredibly intimate experience they just had, and they're just weird about it. I get it. Cool.
The amount of civilian clothing. Kirk was wearing that ugly ass red.
Yeah. They're in the same costumes they were in Search for Spock.
3 months in the same clothes.
Yeah. Stanky.
Thankfully, the Vulcans have a very bad sense of smell and just don't notice that at all.
Listen, it didn't come up with that until what, 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
That's what we call a retcon, sir. We call that a retcon. So I don't want to describe every scene in the movie because we don't want to make this 2 hours, but I think the opening's strong. I think like the probe shows up, it blows the pants off of Starfleet. There's nothing they can do. They're starting to panic. It's a very busy scene in Starfleet Command. I felt like that was like, it showed the genuine sense of dread everyone had at this alien thing showing up and just rolling them no problem. And you know, they get to the point where we've got to do something dramatic. How do we solve this?
Well,
We can time travel.
before that, one of the things that really stood out the most to me in this movie, especially A, as any type of movie, B, specifically a Star Trek movie, is there's no real bad guy.
Yes, there's no villain except that there's a ticking clock, but that's not the thing causing it is not evil.
The true villain does not reveal itself until the last 6 minutes, and they are on screen for about 40 seconds, and that is, of course, the Norwegian whalers. I would say those are the only painted to be patently evil people out there. Um, so you've got this very alien, very powerful thing that is just broadcasting a signal of, hey, it's just ringing the phone, and it's knocking starships out. It's disabling Starbase. It's shutting down Earth's power grid to varying degrees. Like the Saratoga, which, what a fucking miss that it's not the same Saratoga that Cisco's family died on, right? That
Yeah,
Wolf
like, well,
359.
it is a shame they didn't know to use the same registry number when they were doing Wolf 359, right? Like, that's all they needed to do. And no one thought of it at the time. Too bad.
Like, how does that one happen? Because I don't know, was there internet in 93?
Not enough. Not enough that someone was necessarily going to remember that Star Trek 4
There's
already had
nobody
USS
working at Star
Saratoga.
Trek that could like, I wonder if there's another Saratoga out there. Bet you there's not. Anyways, it completely disables the Saratoga. Presumably nobody dies. You don't see anybody actually die from this thing. So it's a capital level threat, but no blood has ever really spilled over it.
Correct.
How do you feel about that? Do you think that's done just to keep the comedy lightness?
Well, I think that it preserves the message, right? Like this film does have a villain, and uh it's environmentalism in the 1980s.
Yes.
So you want to talk about a time travel movie? I actually think this movie's charm to me has increased because of how
No.
the 80s part of it now feels so much more anachronistic than anything in the Star Trek part of it. The Star Trek part of it is very timeless in a way that is endearing.
Well, as if the whaling message isn't loud enough, I'm glad we're also able to jam the dangers of nuclear power in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is filled to the point of exploding with that mid 80s environmentalism thing.
I'm
And
surprised there wasn't a dangerous message about eating leaded paint chips in there as well.
or CFCs or the ozone layer. Maybe that's a 90s thing. It might have been too early for that.
Was there a littering message?
No,
No.
there was a no smoking message. I quit smoking is a button that's
Oh
on
my
the
god, that fucking thing. Yeah, like
yeah, this the gang goes back in time to the cringe 80s. Like the cringiest
Yeah.
part of the not the cool cocaine doing 80s, the cringe left-wing San Francisco 80s.
So this big dangerous thing shows up. The Chekhov's bay windows. Like you just knew these things were going to get knocked in. I like when they even get
Obviously.
like the big, I don't even know what the big floor suction to wall suction cup thing, and they put it on the one window, but the other window is the one that blows out. Hey, we're gonna die. Everybody, stay away from Earth. We're broadcasting this SOS. Stay away from Earth. Klingons, you hearing this? The Klingons that are promising war as long as Jim Kirk's alive. Turns out we're not so tough. We are on our knees getting effed in the A right now. Please don't attack us in our moment of weakness, by the way.
Maybe not the greatest thing to tell your opposition, but hey, it's true, right? And the Klingons apparently lost ships too, so they already know the thing can't be fucked with.
Romulans, wherever you're at, we're in some deep trouble over here. Please keep being quiet. And then, yeah, this amazing revelation that this isn't warp speed. This is time warp? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
So there is a great reference to the fact that, and the Enterprise has done this before in the original series. Actually, the Enterprise went back in time twice, once using this exact method of slingshotting around the sun. And the background lore that has been established about this in the aftermath is that this is not commonly done because computers aren't precise enough to be able to time travel in this fashion. The only reason why the Enterprise and then obviously the Bounty have been able to accomplish this with relative ease is Spock is just the smartest man ever to exist. He is smarter than any computer, and therefore he is capable of getting these calculations correct in ways that computers are not.
That's refreshing to hear, because the next thing I wanted to talk about is how everybody on Earth was confused by this message, but Spock was able to jump to conclusion, Matt, that Space Tube is there to talk to whales in about a minute and a half. Thank God, again, that we loaded the entire Federation Earth database onto this bird of prey for our 6-hour trip home, and that we had those sound.
They came to the conclusion that it was meant for a life form that isn't humanity relatively easily in a way that I think I can believe.
Mhm.
But it's just specifically Kirk asking, yeah, run it underwater. Run it like it's like underwater.
How many people are on Earth do you think are smarter than Kirk and also have their ass on the line and like really motivated to solve this thing?
Are they smarter than Kirk? We'll say
Probably more than 10.
1%. So at least 1% of people, which would still be millions.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
Yeah.
And thank goodness.
Did you watch? This actually reminds me of something very sweet. You ever watch Ready Player One?
Yeah.
Like the idea that somehow this incredible puzzle was that you should do it backwards is not something a gamer thought of immediately was the most insulting part of that film.
There was a lot, but you know what? I got to see a DeLorean race against the Batmobile. So
that's
you
true.
just got to pick your moments that are good. And I think I saw Rayner shooting people up in there from StarCraft. Like
Tracer was there. Yeah.
That was just a movie to be cut up into smaller clips and enjoyed out of context because the main thrust sucked. Anyway, so Kirk solves a puzzle that literally a million other people on Earth couldn't. And luckily also had the guy who's smart enough to brain chart the jump to light speed to get him back in time. What can I say?
All comes together, right?
Yeah.
Just so happens. They go back in time and it's the fucking 80s.
I'm guessing that was computer graphics of like everybody's head rearing up out of the ocean.
It was the nice, like, you're traveling through time, it's going to have a sort of non-Euclidean sort of element to it. I like that. I like that. Like, you come to and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Anyway, did we just travel through time?
I could have gone for... What was his son's name? David?
Yes.
I think that would have been a cool moment of, like, some real introspection. Like, that's another thing that's missing. Again, comedy. Like, there's no bad guy. There's also no emotional baggage. There's no deeper...
He doesn't even talk about his son to anybody. Like, it gets mentioned by Savick briefly, and then that's it. He just kind of moves on, you know? And I get that you don't want to make the movie about that because you kind of just did that movie twice, right? Like Kirk's angst over this boy, you know, first not having been in his life and then him being snatched away from it right after they reconciled. Nothing's a bit much. I agree with you.
You go from Khan, which I'm going to go ahead and call perfect, right?
Yeah.
And these heavy concepts of they're promoting me, I'm not on the ship, where's my family to show for, like, all this stuff, these heavy balls that have been like rolling in play now, right? Mm-hmm. And it coasts through, and I think 3 did a nice job like continuing it. And then this is just fucking bonkers. You got this guy that's about to be put into prison. He's got dead family. He has thrown his life and everybody else's life away to save Spock's life. And all that stuff gets benched. So yeah, these 3D heads popping up as they real fringe sci-fi stuff there. I think that would have been the place to like throw his deep emotional trauma. Instead, everybody gets a 3D head scan and looks goofy going in and out of there. But the air brakes turn on. They wake up. They're in orbit now around Earth in the year 1986.
So it's not just 1986. It's like it's in caps. It's 1986. Everything from the music to the looks to the shot composition once they're actually in San Francisco doing things, it feels like a film in 1986. Like there's like shots that feel like a straight out of fucking Ghostbusters in
Yeah.
this movie.
Well,
Like
I mean,
on purpose.
release date 1986. Like they just go outside and film this stuff.
Yes.
When he is telling everybody like we got to be careful and we can't contaminate the timeline and these are barbaric people and blah blah blah. Like, where's Sulu or Bones being like, fucking Jim, stop? Like, this is our 5th time being on ancient Earth at this point. Like, you are a mobster. We dealt with Nazis. Like, the Man from Uncle crossover episode or whatever the fuck that was.
Jim, this is literally our 3rd time to the past of Earth. All right, like
Lest
this
we
is
all
even our
forget,
first time in the 20th century. Like
lest
we
we
know.
all forget the gosh, what's the silly basketball team? The Harlem Globetrotters adventure we left on the cutting room floor. Like, just beam us down. Let's get the fucking whales and get out of here.
They wind up with a ticking clock in 2 ways. One, they got to get this whale back to Earth before whatever happens to it and nail the time travel part. 2, well, their ship kind of used all of its juice. And Scotty explains, we're going to have to find some way of powering this thing, and I don't know what it is. And that's when we get our second message. First message is humans are stupid. They killed humpback whales. Humpback whales are the only thing that can answer the probe. We got to go back and get the humpback whales. 2 is, well, fortunately, we landed in the time where some reason humans thought nuclear fission was a good idea, and they were poisoning the Earth. But that could be a way we could do this miraculous thing with the lithium crystals and regenerate them.
I thought that was one of the bases that the movie covered well. Spock specifically says, I think we need to go towards the later half of the century because it's the sweet spot of whales still being in abundance and also the availability of fuel for us. Because my first thought was like, why wouldn't you go back to fucking Dark Ages when there's no space stations and satellites to see you and there's going to be the most whales possible to do this fucking thing? And when he mentioned fuel, it's like, all right, that's, there's enough civilization there to cover a supply run if you got to do it. And the whales are there. So that part, at least I thought made really good sense. The fact that they decide to go for San Francisco instead of like the middle of nowhere really depends heavy on like, oh, hey, we did run out of gas.
I think that them needing to go there for that reason makes sense. What I hate is the idea that somehow the incredibly talented scientific minds of the 23rd century, which we see in 2 very specific cases is very much the case with these men, that somehow they don't know that fission would somehow reconstitute the lithium crystals. Like, that's nuclear fission would be child's play to these people. It's an old technology. It would have been tried, right? Someone would have tried to do this. Spock wouldn't have had to think of this and act like it was some sort of absurd coincidence that it could occur. That's a bit of a stretch, and you make that stretch only because you want to say something bad about nuclear power because it's 1986.
Aged real well, by the way.
Oh, I really enjoyed the street shots of San Francisco in 1986, thinking about like what all of those places look like now because I have been there so many times.
Mm.
It's like boy, this San Francisco stopped exist. This is like 3 San Franciscos ago, right? Like this is I San Francisco was like it went through its like gritty mid-century days, which was like in the 70s and 80s, and then it had its smooth 90s days, then it had its hyper elite rich tech days, and now it has like its Mad Max urban hellscape days these days. It's a real circle of life.
Well, again, the nuclear power thing, for this thing to be like the cautionary tale and like, oh, nuclear power is bad. It's like, now, gee, I wish we had more nuclear power to get us like all
Yeah,
these other.
you wouldn't have to mine lithium. That would be pretty cool.
Shout out to Chekhov's all leather outfit, by the way.
He's the only one that's really got a nice fit, you know?
I would not want to be out in that California sun wearing leather pants and the matching leather jacket.
But it's not, they're not too tight. The pants are like leather pants that kind of look comfortable, you know?
Do they? Is that your second bad take? One is this movie was great, and 2 is somehow leather pants in the sun are comfortable.
I want to talk about Chekhov though for a second, because the scene where he and Uhura just got done looking at the yellow pages and are trying to find out where the nuclear vessels are in Alameda.
I like that everybody's plot is resolved by opening their eyes and looking around and being the answer thrust in front of them. Kirk sees on the bus that the whales are over in wherever.
Sausalito, yeah.
And Chekhov and Uhura have like the yellow pages thrust directly in front of them. It's not a detective movie. This is a comedy adventure.
It is. And I think that, I mean, like with Scotty and McCoy that see like the big painting, and then they cut to Uhura and Chekhov having made the same realization. And so there's this scene on the corner where they're asking random passersby about the nuclear vessels, and the cop just staring at them as this absurd, Cold War thing is happening in front of them. First, I just laugh out loud every time I see that scene, because I understand, like, if you're in 1986, that shit's hilarious. And that's maybe the part of the charm of this movie that I appreciate that you don't. I love how 1986 it is. It's such a fucking time capsule. It feels like it was fucking frozen, and thawed out in front of me. This has the most infamous SAG, the Taft Hartley SAG card moment, apparently, in living memory. So that lady who answers the question, she is an extra because her car got towed by the production team. So she parked there. Her car got towed because it was marked, this is going to be used for a movie. And she needed to make the money back to get her car out of impound. Okay. So they said, fine, you can be an extra for the scene. We'll pay you this, and then you can go and get your car back. When she goes through and has her moment in the scene, she actually decides to stop and answer the question and then keep walking, because she just never been an actor before, so she thought that's what she should do. And they liked the reaction that they got out of Walter Cohen so much. It was like so naturally comedic that they left it in. But because they left it in, they had to give her a Taft Hartley form, and she joined SAG because she had a line in the movie. So she has to be credited. So this woman got her fucking car towed because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, got to be an extra to pay for her fucking car to get out, and then wound up in SAG because she got credited in the film because the one-liner that she set up was too good to cut. And she didn't know until the movie premiered.
I like it. That's the most entertaining thing to come out of this entire movie.
You fucking hater, dude. Like,
yeah.
None of this charm worked on you. Like, none of it's funny to you.
No, this is all miserable. This is just slapstick nonsense. The fact that it doesn't dawn on anybody like, hey, here they are in the 80s on the brink of nuclear war with the fucking Russians, and we're going to send our Russian guy to go snoop around a fucking military vessel. Like, okay, again, it's a comedy. You're setting the stuff up for this, but it's just like one dumb thing after another, man.
I mean, you're criticizing them for something they did on purpose. It's not like they didn't think of it. It's like they actually did think of it.
They
And
did
they're
think
like,
of it, and they're
it
like,
would
"What
be
if we just
funny.
again make these guys as stupid as possible?"
It's not stupid though. That's what's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is stupid. You're taking the guy who is going to be absolutely presumed to be a fucking Russian spy. Okay,
They don't know. Okay, think for a second. All right, they're from 2286. They're in 1986. It's literally 300 years in the future that they're from.
what
You
happened in the
think for
episode where they
what
go back with the Nazis?
stick with me, okay?
Okay,
Stick with me for 1 second. Let's say that we got shunted back to 1726 and you had to be told what side of the fucking 30 years war you had to be on. Okay? Like you wouldn't fucking know. You're a smart guy. You're probably one of the smartest people on earth. You are. Statistically, by the way, Peter, not to blow too much smoke
put
up
me
your ass.
right up against Kirk when
Jim
it's time
Kirk.
to figure
Yeah,
out what the noise is underwater.
but you wouldn't be able to solve for that. You might do something stupid that to us, because we have the historic context of it being recent, knows it's fucking stupid. But for them, they shouldn't know. They shouldn't be thinking of it. Why would they know that?
In the episode where they're dealing with the Nazis, are they standing around trying to figure out if the Nazis what weird obscure piece of history is this? Or they're like, oh damn, those are Nazis.
The Nazis are like the high score for evil. That's
I
like the
would
one of
say
the,
all this stuff is
it's like
pretty much
knowing what
along the
the
same.
ancient Egyptian iconography looks like, or knowing what the Roman Empire is. Like some high points you just, or low points you just,
They've
some
been
low points you just know about.
they've been back in time enough that I would say they're pretty familiar with this shit. And also, what were you just telling me about the smartest man in the world that can do is the space math to get the time travel right? Who literally just spends the entire episode quoting the most goofy, minute details. He knows when whales went extinct on Earth, but he's not going to know about the U.S. Russian Cold War.
Because he's an alien who doesn't understand emotion. So he's still got that going for him.
Emotion?
That's his character arc.
I can't. You know what? I can't comprehend why it's dumb to send Chekhov to the fucking aircraft carrier to steal radiation because I'm a Vulcan and I don't. Vibes are beyond me. I guess in retrospect, like
We're working
that was
hard at aiding this movie,
foolish.
man. We have watched so much shit, and this is you're drawing a line on this. This is charming.
It's not.
It's fun.
Khan was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And you won me over on 3, like continue the ball, and this is just pandering dog shit.
Oh, okay. Well, for example, I liked the romance in this because it's played kind of against trope. Kirk is the womanizer. You think he's going to land the bird, and it turns out the bird was never for him to land to begin with. This lady just really
She's
wanted
a
to go to the
psycho,
future. Yeah,
for
she just like,
starters.
you're like,
And I can
obsessed
get
with
them.
my whales.
I cannot accept the fact nobody knows that the Russians are the bad guys at this point and sending Chekhov's. I can't understand Kirk being so much of future man that he is not seeing the red flags that this lady is absolutely bonkers. When
She has
Spock
no friends. She has no friends, and she only likes whales.
and she picks up fucking hitchhikers that were just swimming like that thing too. Spock not even like tapping Kirk on the shoulder, just jumping in and swimming around for that gag there, and mind melding a fucking whale.
I mean, the plot is decided absurdly, but fun in a way that ends up being rather amusing. That, okay, we're going to treat this as that humpback whales have advanced cognition. Are they as smart as humans? Don't know. But they're capable of complex enough thought to be able to like a person and know who they are, which is, that's pretty high for an animal of any kind. And so they have them do it, and they're like, I tried to convince them, like maybe talk the ship and not destroying Earth. I think we pulled it off.
I want to talk about the whales in the ending. This lady, this biologist, science lady biologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who does biology, science, and then like I'll cut off Spock on this because he's, he doesn't understand vibes. And, I'll excuse Kirk as well because really he's got a mission, which is to save Earth at almost all costs, which, they bend a lot of rules to get this thing done. But the science lady And also the whales. Like, at what point does it set in on them? Like, oh, we're going to bring the whales to the future. We're going to save the whale race. We're going to save all of Earth. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I want like subtitles at the end of the movie of like the whales swimming like happy, like, yay, we're so happy. Wait, hold on. One of us is going to have to fuck this kid. Whoa. Whoa, what did we just sign up for?
I
We're going
mean,
to be inbred as hell.
Advanced genetic science of the 23rd century might be able to assist them with some kind of solution, right? Like, whatever. We
What?
don't have to think.
Super strong antidepressants so they're not trying to commit
No,
suicide after
advanced
railing their
cloning
kid?
techniques that take, like, okay, now we have living examples of humpback whale DNA, so now we can actually create humpback whale DNA embryos of
Does
different
Dr.
genetic.
Crazy know about all this? Because again, she should be throwing a fucking red flag out. Like, well, listen, hey, what do you mean we're only taking 2? What do you mean good? It also happens to be pregnant. Now there's 3. Like, we need more.
We need like 50 breeding pairs. What are you doing? So, uh, that's not important. Like, no one cares about that. No one's thinking about that.
Because you're
It's
not the
bullshit.
whale having to bang his kid. All right.
Like, the whales are just a way to do the plot, which is,
Yes,
you know,
to do. Emphasis on do.
I really enjoyed the way that McCoy just cures someone's kidney failure with a random pill that he happened to have in his 23rd century med kit, and he was just aghast at everything going on around him to the point of just being pissed about it.
I would like to think that somehow that lady that he saves the life of contributes in a meaningful way to the development of the super soldier program that produces Khan and basically the entire downfall of Earth.
The predestination paradox actually does make an appearance in the novelization in some of this, because they changed the script after they decided to punch it up, and McCoy and Scotty go to that company because they read the history books and see, oh, this is the guy who invents transparent aluminum, and he just seems to come up with it like sometime in 1986 for some reason, and they look at each other and be like, oh wait, no, we're actually supposed to do this.
Why would you cut that?
Because you don't want to be too sci-fi, right? Like, you don't want to make,
because you want it to be bad. Yes.
You want people to fucking like Star Trek so you can make more Star Trek, Peter. You can't make more Star Trek if people don't fucking like it. So you instead of doing it as a serious thing, you do it as a joke of them, like, I don't know, maybe he invents it. Which implies the predestination paradox without having to go and explain it.
Well, they touch it too with him pawning his glasses off.
Yeah. There's a gift from Dr. McCoy. Well, the trick
wasn't there serious emotional baggage with those about you detesting the fact that you're growing old? No, that was a phase before I popped my Prozac pill. Let me get rid of these things.
Spock, you literally came back from the dead. I don't fear death at all. Like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Here's the deal, Spock. If I die, you take my body, you get in a bird of prey, you slingshot around the sun, and then you fly over to the Genesis planet and shoot me down next to you, so I'm reborn along with you, and that's how we're going to live forever, you and me. I like when the bird of prey crashes in the bay, and for some reason they have to evacuate the ship just so they can stand on the outside of the ship in this massive slip/drowning hazard when they could have just kept the door on and chilled out and been fine.
Well, you're being fun. So we're going to have everyone get out and we're going to celebrate our big victory.
No, they're just watching in horror as this thing's wrecking them, and maybe Kirk is drowning down in the cargo bay. Like, nobody else is like, hey, I should go down there just in case Kirk needs help.
You got to let Jim have a heroic moment somewhere in this movie. There wasn't much opportunity, right? Like, you're doing the comedy bit. He's okay. Did we have our hero captain actually have to do anything really, or was the team too efficient? Okay, let's have him do this, right? Because otherwise it was him just getting into hijinks with people, sneaking in the hospital and shit.
Those terrible cops that just let people walk into an operatory that's currently occupied with a military prisoner,
Yeah, a potential spy.
and the fucking CIA or whatever is just like, yeah, let the local police take him over to the civilian hospital. We don't need to have hands on this one.
I'm not going to convince you, huh? You are going to rag on this thing the whole way.
This was a terrible movie to sit through. I understand it as a marketing vehicle, and obviously, as you're saying, it was very effective, and there were good things that came of this. But as a Star Trek movie, this thing was fucking shit. It was preachy and dumb, full of annoying characters, and I'm glad that the crew had fun making it. I'm assuming with Nimoy at the helm. Um, I don't
Made a
really
lot of
think.
money, made them all far more famous than they were before. And yeah, dude, I obviously we ham it up because we do that for the show, but I want to give this a genuine defense to you. People don't get into Star Trek if it's inaccessible. You have to create a landing pad for them. You have to create some sort of on ramp.
I
And this is a great way to do it. It is a clear Star Trek story here. There's plenty of Star Trek, kind of tropes to it. They don't dumb it down too much
What are you
to do the
talking about?
plot. I mean, they get a little preachy and they get a little weird on the fringes and it gets a little forced, but there is a threat. How do we deal with the threat? We have to go back in time. All right, can we go back in time? Yes, we've done it before. There's literally episodes about it. Okay, we'll do the thing. We'll go back. Are we going to do some comedy about us being in the 80s as we solve this problem and it gets a little slapsticky? Sure. But then we get back, we save the day. And then, frankly, I love the ending of this movie because their punishment is that because they saved the world, they get to just go like, guys, we're just really, you saved the world. You get whatever you want.
What do we
right?
call that? Standing Order 12. Was that what that was? The ends justify the means.
Oh, Starfleet General Order number 2. If
Yeah.
you disobey direct orders, but it works out, then you don't get punished.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, here it is, right? Like you
Sure.
committed all of these crimes, but then you did save every human being on the planet. So that should come with some benefits. So we're going to let you off the hook for all of your treason and stuff, and we're just going to demote Kirk so that you guys can go back out there and continue to adventure because it turns out you saved the world. You're good at saving the world. You saved the world. Thanks for saying you saved the world. Like it's nice to see the heroes get a reward.
Again, great point to button hook right back into Khan. Kirk's clear regret that they took him off the bridge. He
Yep.
wanted to be on the bridge, and all that other stuff. And there's the great time to say, well, you got what you wanted. And Kirk be like, boy, howdy, I sure did.
We'll even
It's
rename a ship for you. It's the USS Enterprise A. It's like, and that's where that idea came from was, oh, we'll just make it so that the flagship of the Federation is always the USS Enterprise, and it's just going to be A, B, C, D. This is too important a thing.
Yep.
This has to stay.
The Enterprise and the Saratoga. Just names that won't die. I'm very curious that this is what you came into Star Trek with, that you came in through this comedy beat. Like, I just came in watching TNG. I want to do a poll. I want to see what the people that we've got listening, like what their thoughts
Yeah,
on this are.
I'd be interested to know A, where they got in from, and then B,
Yeah, that's the other one.
like, okay, now with that in mind, what do you think of this as a vehicle for that? Is it a hindrance, or is Peter Wright or is Joseph Wright? I think there's
Yeah.
actually a very interesting debate here, all things considered, right? Like, as I don't think it's bad. I'm not just saying that so that there's an opposing viewpoint. I enjoyed watching this movie again. I feel like it is actually Star Trek enough. You're looking at it without my nostalgia, without my previously, created affection for it, that this is how I got into this thing that is probably my primary personal interest in life. So if you don't have an affection for it, is it good? Is it just me? I'd love to see people talk about that.
Real quick shout out, Sarek holding on the fort as always. That guy, I think, came out of this movie probably the best character.
Oh yeah.
Um, Interesting. This is the most that we've seen of the Federation and Earth,
Yeah,
right?
we got a little bit of like, this is what the Starfleet Council looks like. This guy with the very 70s looking outfit is the Federation president. And yeah, Sarek, once again, the way he plays being a full-blooded Vulcan is so specifically one way that I don't think anyone else quite ever gets, which is, a tribute to Mark Leonard, but like the way when he's having his last conversation with Spock and he's giving him a huge compliment by saying, "I was wrong when I said that you shouldn't have been in Starfleet. Clearly you have done such tremendous things that would not have been possible had you not made the decision you did." And it's like he's still very qualified, but he offers it as respect to his son.
His portrayal, because we just went through a lot of Vulcan with
Mhm.
Enterprise. He differs from everybody else. There is a warmth, there is a confidence, and there is a gravitas that his portrayal carries that most. I can't really think of any other. Maybe Tim Russ. You think about like Vork and some of these other bit part um, Vulcans they bring around, like they are nowhere near this guy. Like he is a hero character through and through.
There's like a touch of cockiness to him too, but just like
But
the
that's
right
that.
amount.
It's the confidence, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's got a swagger, maybe I don't know, but like that's because he's the one who's determining what it is to be a Vulcan. It's him. I mean, it's mostly Leonard Nimoy, but then it's him. Like that. Those were your two big tent poles of like how do you build this entire culture out.
And the perfect part of it was something so small when Spock, whereas like Sarek is complimenting his fellow officers. It's like your compatriots. They're people of quality, and it's a tremendous respect from him again. And Spock says they are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarek is ever so slightly disappointed by that answer, and just kind of goes, "Yes, of course." and and smiles just a tiny bit, like, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what a human answer from my
Mm-hmm.
half human son. Fuck. Right? Like, I just was hoping you'd come back a little bit more fixed, but I guess you're still you, huh? Damn it.
Yes, my mutant resurrected son. What a
And
fool.
just that one moment and that one shot, Mark Leonard made a choice like, this is exactly how I'm going to read into this line. I'm going to put it right there. And it's like, that's so right. That feels so right about what it means to be a Vulcan. And you're correct. As you point out, we've seen so many other actors who can't hit that beat. And it's a real craft thing, right? Like only a really good actor can modulate themselves and get just like in that tight corner
They
with a single
confuse
line read.
they confuse Vulcan for robot.
Yeah. And they confuse suppressing one's emotions for being constantly angry and trying to repress it. Like they don't know it means dialing the gain down so low, but there's still like a backbeat there. And it just every once in a while, it goes a little bit above the backbeat and it's not much, but because it's above, you notice, you see it. And it rewards the attentive, you know, observer.
Absolutely. Anything else to say on this guy?
Nah, I mean, if you a hater and I ain't getting you off it, I doubt we're going to be changing your opinion the next time we do a TOS movie faux show. Because I don't think, have you ever seen Star Trek 5?
5 is Let's Find God.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I've seen snips and whatever.
5 is the movie that I would say all the things you just said about 4. Because 5 is where they tried to be comedy and do more Star Trek-y things, and it just actually doesn't work. It's like a fucking car crash, and it's all fucking William Shatner's fault because he directed it. and 6 is when finally they come back and figure out the formula again. We should definitely do 6
Well,
sometime
we're gonna do
soon.
5. You
Yeah,
know,
we got to do 5 first.
gotta
We got to
stick
do
to the
5
formula.
first. We got to keep going. We're going to do all of these. And thanks again to our patrons. You know, it used to be when we took weeks off after we completed a season of a show, it was just dead air. But because of the patrons, we make some extra content as the seasons go on, and that means we have more that we can put out to everyone else. So that's what you're enabling, and we really appreciate it. And if you are one of our non-patrons who are listening to this after it's released as a normal episode and you want to help create more content for the show, you can find us at Patreon at Feature Please. So www.patreon.com/Feature Please and sign up. It's a little $3 a month and you can have everything we got up there. And we'll see you next time.